The story everyone tells about Blockbuster is that they laughed Netflix out of a room and paid for it with a $5 billion empire. That story is incomplete. By early 2007, Blockbuster had built a digital platform that was gaining subscribers faster than Netflix, 2 million paying members, and climbing. They were actually winning. And then, in a matter of months, a boardroom war gutted the entire strategy from within. Not the market, not the technology. Their own leadership strangled the comeback almost nobody remembers. And understanding why means going back to the very beginning. In 1985, Blockbuster started as a software project disguised as a video store. David Cook, a Texas engineer with a background in data systems, opened the first Blockbuster in Dallas, not because he loved movies, but because he saw a mess to organize. While other rental shops scribbled notes on index cards, Cook built a computerized system that tracked every tape, every rental, and every customer. The result was speed and control. Shelves could hold 8,000 VHS titles, and inventory moved with a precision that mom-and-pop competitors could not touch. Returns were logged instantly. Late fees were calculated to the minute. The store could reorder bestsellers before a single copy ran out. Cook's software was not just a back-office tool, it was the engine of Blockbuster's early dominance. The system let Blockbuster scale from one Dallas store to hundreds in just a few years, each new location plugged into the same tight network. The company could spot rental trends, shift stock, and open new stores with a level of discipline that felt almost futuristic for the era. Even today, the exact technical specs of Cook's system are lost to time. No surviving blueprints, no detailed SEC filings, but the edge was real. Blockbuster did not win because it had more tapes. It won because it knew exactly where every tape was and who wanted it next. This obsession with systems would shape every gamble the company made, for better and for worse. And here is the part almost nobody remembers. Blockbuster's confidence in its own reinvention was not a fluke. It had always believed it could outthink the market because from the very beginning, it had. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won. Huizenga came to Blockbuster in 1987 with a playbook written in acquisitions and a taste for speed. He wasn't interested in running a few well-oiled stores. He wanted a national empire. Huizenga had built waste management into a giant by rolling up local outfits, and he saw the same opportunity in video rental. Under his control, Blockbuster became a machine for swallowing competitors. Independent shops were bought, rebranded, and plugged into the Blockbuster system at a pace that made rivals dizzy. By the early 1990s, stores were popping up in strip malls and suburbs across America, each one painted blue and yellow, each one promising the same endless wall of new releases. Growth became Blockbuster's identity. The company opened hundreds of stores a year, sometimes more. The goal wasn't just to dominate, it was to make Blockbuster the default choice for Friday night. Investors loved it, Wall Street loved it, and for a while the numbers backed up the hype. By the time Viacom came calling in 1994, Blockbuster was everywhere. Viacom paid $8.4 billion to add the chain to its media portfolio, a deal that looked like a victory lap for everyone involved. But scale has a price. The bigger Blockbuster grew, the more it needed to keep growing just to stay ahead of its own costs. Debt from the Viacom deal hung over the company like a storm cloud. Suddenly, every new store wasn't just a trophy, it was a necessity. The company's legendary flexibility started to fade. Decisions had to run through layers of management. The system that once gave Blockbuster its edge became a weight, slowing every move. The giant was built, but its ability to pivot was shrinking, even as the world outside the blue and yellow walls began to change. And here's the part almost nobody remembers. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won. By the turn of the millennium, Blockbuster's business looked unbreakable from the outside. 9,000 stores spanned the globe, each one humming with the same blue and yellow promise. But behind the Blockbuster numbers was a secret. The company's profits leaned heavily on a penalty almost everyone resented. In 2000, late fees brought in about $800 million, roughly 16% of all revenue. That's not a rounding error. That's the difference between a thriving giant and a company treading water. The model was simple, even elegant in its own way. Customers paid a few bucks to rent a movie, but if they missed the return window even by a day, the meter started running. $1 here, $1 there, multiplied by millions of forgetful renters. For years, this stream of penalty payments funded new store openings, national ad campaigns, and the illusion that the business was as sturdy as ever. The system worked so well for the bottom line that it became a kind of addiction. Blockbuster wasn't just selling rentals. It was quietly profiting from lateness. But there was a catch. Those late fees built up a quiet, simmering anger in Blockbuster's customer base. People joked about it, griped about it, even swore off renting altogether after a particularly steep bill. Still, the company couldn't walk away. The more Blockbuster grew, the more it depended on this unpopular revenue stream. And the bigger the company got, the harder it became to imagine any future where late fees didn't play a starring role. The giant's strength was built on a practice that couldn't survive the world that was coming. And here is the part almost nobody remembers. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won. In September 2000, two men from a little-known startup called Netflix flew to Dallas with a proposal that now sounds like science fiction. Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph were asking Blockbuster to buy them out for $50 million. The meeting took place in Blockbuster's headquarters, with CEO John Antioco and General Counsel Ed Stead on the other side of the table. Hastings and Randolph laid out their vision: DVD by mail, no late fees, a subscription model that could reach millions of homes. For Blockbuster, flush with $800 million a year in late fees and 9,000 stores worldwide, it sounded almost quaint. Antioco listened, but not for long. He told the Netflix team that the dot-com hysteria is completely overblown. In Mark Randolph's words, Antioco seemed to be struggling not to laugh. The meeting ended in under an hour. No counteroffer, no follow-up. Just a polite dismissal and a sense that the future had been weighed and found wanting. Randolph would later call Netflix a very small niche business, the kind of phrase that becomes a punchline in business school case studies. That Dallas meeting has become corporate folklore, replayed in every story about Blockbuster's fall. But the truth is more complicated. The rejection was real, the quotes are real, but this was not the moment that finished Blockbuster. It was a snapshot of supreme confidence, maybe arrogance, in a business model that had always worked before. And here is the part almost nobody remembers. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won. Blockbuster Online launched in 2004, not as a sideshow, but as the company's first real attempt to meet the digital future head-on. The offer was simple. Customers could rent DVDs online, get them in the mail, and never set foot in a store if they didn't want to. For a company built on the ritual of browsing aisles and the blue and yellow glow of Friday nights, this was a break from tradition. But the real shock came at the end of that year when CEO John Antioco announced the end of late fees, effective January 1st, 2005. The move was more than a marketing ploy. It was a direct hit to the company's own cash flow. Blockbuster's internal numbers showed that late fees brought in between $250 million and $300 million in operating income every year. That was money the company now agreed to leave on the table, fully aware of the consequences. Antioco didn't sugarcoat it. He called the end of late fees the biggest and most important customer benefit we've ever offered. It was a public admission that Blockbuster's old economics, profiting from forgetfulness and frustration, couldn't last in a world where customers had other choices. The company's own pilots showed that when late fees disappeared, rental transactions and retail sales actually picked up. People came back, browsed more, bought snacks, and spent money in ways that softened the blow. But the loss was real, and Blockbuster's leadership knew it. This wasn't a half measure or a cosmetic tweak. For the first time, Blockbuster was trying to win by giving customers exactly what they wanted, even if it meant sacrificing a chunk of its most dependable revenue. It was a gamble that few expected from a giant so used to calling the shots. And here's the part almost nobody remembers. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won. In late 2006, Blockbuster launched the one program that threatened to rewrite everything: Total Access. This was not just another loyalty card or a half-hearted tech upgrade. Total Access fused Blockbuster's sprawling network of 9,000 stores with its growing online rental service, letting subscribers order DVDs by mail and then swap them instantly for new titles at any Blockbuster counter. No more waiting for the next envelope. No more feeling like a second-class citizen compared to Netflix users. For the first time, Blockbuster's endless rows of blue and yellow stores became an advantage, not a liability. The goal was clear: to reach 2 million paying online subscribers. By January 2007, Blockbuster hit that milestone. The company's own reports confirmed it: 2 million online customers, with more signing up every week. In the first half of 2007, Blockbuster was adding subscribers faster than Netflix, a fact that even made it into internal board presentations and the business press. For a brief moment, the old giant looked nimble again. NPR called Total Access a direct attack on Netflix's turf, and for good reason. The hybrid model offered something Netflix could not: immediate gratification. Walk into a store, hand over your finished DVD, and walk out with a new one. No shipping delay, no waiting for the mail. Total Access. Customers were coming back to stores, buying snacks, browsing shelves, and bringing their families. The service was simple, and for a window of time, better than the competition. Blockbuster's marketing hammered the point home: why wait for your next movie when you can get it tonight? The company's 2006 holiday ad blitz, backed by a $35 million campaign, flooded the airwaves. The numbers backed up the bravado. By spring, Blockbuster's online base was surging past 2.2 million. Within a few months, it stabilized near 3.1 million subscribers, a 41% jump in half a year. Netflix still had a bigger total base, but for once, it was Blockbuster's turn to play offense. This was not a company on the ropes. This was a $5 billion brand with cash, customers, and a digital plan that actually worked. If you asked a retail analyst in early 2007 who was winning the DVD by mail war, the answer was not so obvious. And here is the part almost nobody remembers. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won. Carl Icahn walked into Blockbuster's boardroom in May 2005 and turned a strategy debate into a fight for control. Armed with 8.6% of the company's shares and a campaign that hammered executive pay and questioned every dollar spent on digital bets, Icahn won 3 seats with 77% of votes. Suddenly, the company's future was no longer in the hands of the team that had built its first real digital comeback. It belonged to shareholders who wanted cash now and didn't care how it arrived. The battle lines were drawn around John Antioco, the architect of Blockbuster's digital push. In 2006, the board slashed his bonus from $7.7 million he claimed to just over $3 million. Icahn called his severance unconscionable. Antioco called the board's offer unfair. The fight dragged on for months, spilling into headlines and SEC filings. On March 20th, 2007, Blockbuster announced that Antioco would leave by year's end, walking away with a $5 million severance, less than half of what his contract once promised. The man who had steered Blockbuster into the digital race was out. The company's brief window of digital momentum slammed shut. Jim Keyes, fresh from 7-Eleven, took the CEO chair on July 2nd, 2007. He inherited a business that, for the first time in years, was actually working. Total Access had passed 2 million subscribers in January and surged to 3.6 million by summer. The stores were humming again. The hybrid model was drawing customers back. But Keyes didn't see a digital engine. He saw a cash fire. Within weeks, he cut Total Access marketing, raised prices, and stripped away the very perks that had fueled the comeback. Free in-store exchanges? Gone. E-coupons? Gone. The 4 at a time plan? Gone. Subscription prices jumped by as much as $10 a month in some cases. The ads vanished. The promise of instant swaps faded into fine print. The numbers responded with brutal clarity. By September, Blockbuster's online subscriber base had dropped from 3.6 million to 3.1 million, a 500,000 customers lost in a matter of months. The store traffic did not rise to fill the gap. The digital momentum, so hard-won, was thrown away at the moment it mattered most. The subscriber exodus wasn't just a blip. It was proof that the digital turnaround had been real and that the reversal was fatal. The story that gets told is that Blockbuster missed its chance when it laughed Netflix out of the room. But the record is sharper, more tragic, and harder to mythologize. Blockbuster had the money, the customers, and a digital plan that was actually beating Netflix until its own Boardroom, chasing short-term comfort, tore out the engine. And here is the part almost nobody remembers. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won. On September 23, 2010, Blockbuster filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. The numbers on the court docket told the story in cold detail: $1.02 billion in assets, $1.46 billion in debt. The company secured a $125 million debtor-in-possession loan just to keep the lights on while it searched for a buyer. Less than a year later, in April 2011, Dish Network stepped in with a $320 million bid for what was left. The deal did not bring back the lost customers or the digital momentum. It was a salvage operation. Dish took the brand, the mailing list, and a handful of stores, but the strategy that once threatened Netflix had already been gutted. By early 2014, the last of the corporate-owned Blockbuster stores went dark. The blue and yellow signs came down one after another until only a single franchise in Bend, Oregon remained. That store, run by the Tischer and Harding families, outlasted the corporate giant by clinging to the ritual of Friday night rentals and community loyalty. It became a living museum to a business model that had once rewritten the rules of home entertainment. Some will say Blockbuster's fate was sealed by technology or by Netflix's head start, but the truth is more uncomfortable. Kodak built the first digital camera and still missed the digital age. Blockbuster built a digital comeback and still threw it away. Bankruptcy wasn't the beginning of the end. It was the final, public diagnosis of a self-inflicted wound. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won. Today, streaming giants dominate an industry Blockbuster once ruled and almost reinvented. But the real cautionary tale is not about missing a deal. It is about how internal sabotage and short-term fixes can unravel even a $5 billion empire. In business, as in life, the greatest threat rarely comes from outside. The most dangerous moment for any giant is the moment it believes it has already won.